at the Cleveland County Master Gardener's Teaching and Demonstration Gardens in Norman, and joining me now is Jim McDaniel, who handles a lot of public relations. Hi Jim, thanks for having us.
We're glad to have you in our garden today.
Thank you. Well, I know you give a lot of tours here. We're going to get a little mini tour today, but could you first tell me a little bit about how these demonstration gardens got started?
Yes, ma'am. Back in 2000, the county and the Fair Board, along with our horticultural supervisor, got together and decided that, hey, we could have a teaching area here that would enhance the fairgrounds.
Okay.
So they gave us an acre of land, and we started with 3 raised beds over in the back.
Okay.
And that first year, actually the first year was just the dirt work. You know, getting the soil ready.
This used to be a parking lot, so
the parking lot is right over there.
Certainly, there's a lot to prepare and get the soil.
And our goals, you know, with our organization, as with the rest of Master Gardener organizations across the state, you know, is to help our public. You know, to show them gardening techniques, to give classes. We've had composting classes this year. We've had butterfly classes this year. We've had square foot gardening classes. Excellent. And we have next month we have 3 more coming. So
you have a lot of different groups coming out to use this.
Yes, today we've already
elderly.
Had the nursing home group. We had 24 people from the nursing home, and of course we showed them our gardens over here behind you that are our handicap gardens for people in wheelchairs. And we have about 27 different garden areas out here now. Okay. And we started in 2000, and every year during our meeting somebody has a new idea and they want to start a new garden. And it's voted on. I mean, it's democratic. In other words, you can't come out here with a shovel and just plant something. And our gardens are run individually.
Okay.
The Zero-Scape garden here, for instance, has maybe 2 to 3 people working in it. Handicapped garden has only 1. Okay. The garden behind you in the far corner is the Oklahoma Proven, has 3 people. Okay. And it seems to work better that way.
I think so. A little sense of ownership. Well, let's take a look at some of these since we're standing next to the Zero-Scape garden. We'll start here. Of
course, plant material is picked to survive on its own. There's a lot of desert plants out here like the desert willow. Okay. Beautiful tree that blooms all summer long as it doesn't get water.
Of course.
It gets water, it's opportunistic, it wants to grow, and it doesn't worry about the little babies on the end. Okay. Same thing with the yucca. It won't flower if it gets too much water. Matter of fact, we had water standing here for too long, so you notice the first 2 did not bloom.
Yeah, just the one that's a little higher.
Right.
Certainly.
So your yarras, your Russian sages, your autumn sages, your irises, your poppies, all do well on their own. They're wild roses. Any of your grasses, like your buffalo grass, native to Oklahoma, does well. And this is only one of 3 gardens that doesn't get water. Okay. Okay.
It still looks beautiful. You also have a lovely garden back here. It's so vivid.
This is our Monarch Way station. And of course, with the butterfly gardens, the butterflies are up there coming over. You want to get something to attract them down. Once you get them down, you got to have something for them to eat. Okay? The milkweed, that's a common milkweed. That's one of their favorites. And also in the back, we have a tropical milkweed. Right. And we found a monarch this morning on him.
Absolutely.
And again, they like a sturdy place, you know, like some wood structure to put their, I want to say cocoon, but that's wrong.
Yeah, the chrysalis.
The chrysalis, okay.
Absolutely, and all this color, I'm sure, attracts a whole variety of butterflies and birds as well.
We had about 3 hummingbirds this morning, you know, even with the wind. Yeah. And again, we've had the Gulf flitterary butterfly in about 3 stages in that garden.
Excellent.
I mean, all year. The kids just go crazy when they get to touch the little caterpillar.
Yes.
Oh,
it's a great opportunity to educate them as well. Right. Well, you had mentioned the handicap accessible garden. Why don't we go take a look at that one?
Let's do it. Kim, this is our handicap accessible garden, and we've built it in 2 phases. One phase is for people on walkers or crutches, where they can come up and they can still garden as long as they can reach halfway across.
They don't have to bend over.
Right, and we plant short-rooted plants in here.
so that you
Even
don't need
carrots,
a very
yeah.
deep bed.
And if you do want a deeper bed, we've had some interest in people that not on walkers or stuff that just can't bend anymore. We suggest maybe they use a larger board here so that they can get a deeper root structure. But for the wheelchairs, again, they come in their wheelchairs, they sit and they can still garden as long as they can reach. Now, if they want to trellis, we can also take this off and sit it on the ground, and that gives them a little bit more.
So they can reach a little
But you
higher.
can grow anything in these container beds that you can grow in your regular garden. And it
Excellent.
works great.
It's another great demonstration. You also have a beautiful garden in the corner
Yes.
over there. Can you tell me about that?
That is our Oklahoma proven all-American garden.
Okay.
And we take our homeowners over there that wants to know what we'll grow in Oklahoma. We have a lot of people moving into Oklahoma. It's really amazing from other states, other zones. And we can take them there, we can give them a handout, give them the web address, and you got a 99% chance of anything in that garden growing in your yard.
Absolutely.
New homeowners, just people that like to walk through the garden.
Well, Jim, these are wonderful gardens. I'm going to join the Master Gardener president and look at some of the vegetable production that you have growing here. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
We're joining Teresa January, the current president of the Cleveland County Master Gardeners. Teresa, you guys have some wonderful vegetable demonstrations here as well.
We do. We try to demonstrate a lot of things, particularly for people who are in small spaces. One of the things that's always real fun for the kids is here in front of us, the peanut plants. We love to show the kids, and when it's a little bit later, you can pull up and show the peanuts growing at the end of the spike there.
And they'll be surprised.
They're great fun.
They grow underground.
They don't know that. And they're not a root. Also, we've got the square foot gardens here. We got the basic square foot unit there and a combination of several square foot units on this side where we grow a spring crop of vegetables and summer vegetables and into the fall crop now we've got planted. So we have some fun stuff. The red okra is very pretty and some herbs. We have our fall green beans coming up. And another thing that's always fun to demonstrate is that we grow the squash, which things like zucchini can be huge.
Yes.
But we tie them up to the post, so it's only taking up 4 square feet.
Another thing I noticed is your trellised melon here.
The sugar baby watermelon is just a cute little thing. You got to give it a little sling to support it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Otherwise, it's very heavy, but this helps hold the weight, and we could grow this.
The
fruits in a
trellises
small
are
space.
wonderful. The cucumbers are great up the trellis. The tomatoes we've trellised this year. Just pinch them off as they come up to keep them going up. And we're going to do some sugar snap peas up the trellis here for fall.
Just coming.
So they're just coming up.
You also have a couple of interesting fruits growing in this area. I noticed the figs. You want to tell us
we have
about those?
a fig plant near the entrance, and that tree is really interesting to people as they come in. A lot of them have never seen a fig. They have no idea that it's hardy in this area. And while we can get some winter damage from it, it produces figs by the end of the season. They're great. We have to fight the squirrels for those.
Of course, always battling.
Yeah.
You also have several vegetable beds here, and I see this one you planted with some fall crops.
Yes, this one we're showing the fall crops. We get tours through the end of October, and so we want to show people the things that have to be planted in the late summer, but will produce up until the frost. And these plants have just gone in. We've got the whole section of basic cool weather fall crops here. The broccolis, cauliflowers, kohlrabis, cabbages. Most of them that same family though.
Yeah.
But
and the produce that you harvest from all these gardens, you donate all of that. Is that correct?
Yes, we donate all the fruits and vegetables that we grow to Food and Shelter for Friends here in town. So it's a charitable product of the garden. We're mostly about teaching, but also we can help out the community that way too.
Absolutely.
We've donated a lot of produce over the years.
It's a wonderful cause. Well,
So,
thank you very much for sharing these gardens. You also have another very unique vegetable garden, the Native American garden, so we'll go take a look at that as
Okay.
well. Joining us now is Fred Schneider, one of the master gardeners here and also a retired anthropologist. Well, Fred, of course your interest in anthropology has sort of sparked a passion in ethnobotany.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been interested in Native Americans and their gardening activities for probably all my career, but seriously for the last 35 years.
Okay, and so what are some of your goals in working with Native American crops?
Well, personally, I'm very concerned about seed preservation, the traditional seed crops, and sharing that with Native people to try to ensure that that continues. But also public education, to remind people of what we owe Native Americans in terms of a lot of garden produce we take for granted. If we have crops that are abundant and do well, we share that with food programs here in town, and each year we try to donate quite a bit of vegetables to the local community. And then it also adds to the aesthetics of the Cleveland County Fairground.
Of course.
I always point out it's much more fun to look at vegetables or flowers than it is to look at parking lots.
Absolutely, absolutely. So your work with seed preservation, you know, a lot of us don't realize that many of these older cultivars, or heirloom cultivars, especially the Native American ones, are being lost.
Yes, very much so, at a very rapid rate. But fortunately, there are organizations here in the U.S. and elsewhere too that have been developed to encourage people to preserve traditional seed stock. And that's true not only for Native American seed, but for lots of our commercial seed too.
Absolutely.
So it's a real concern of loss of genetic heritage in some of that seed and plant material.
And so where do you get the seeds for your plants?
Well, probably half the seed I have gathered myself directly from Native people throughout the Great Plains area. Some of the seed I've received from members of Seed Savers Exchange, which is the largest seed saving organization, public organization in the world. And there are a lot of people, more and more people in the U.S. who are concerned about Native American seed, so a bunch of other crazy people like myself that are preserving seed, and also trying to return that seed to various individuals. Earlier on, I got some of my corn seed from the USDA in Ames, Iowa. And one of the things I was concerned at that time was they said they were overwhelmed with trying to grow out and preserve what they had in their holdings. Any information I could supply back to them, they'd love. And I said, I'm not a botanist. Just, we'll take any information you can give us.
Excellent.
So I've returned seed to government places also.
As well. So what are some of the crops that you've been growing here in the Native American
Well,
garden?
always corn, beans, and squash.
Of course.
And the fourth important one, sunflowers.
Excellent.
A lot of people don't realize that for many Native American people, sunflowers were probably as important, maybe in some ways even more important than corn. After all, its nutritional benefits far exceed corn.
Absolutely. Good source for protein.
Yeah. So I instead of three sisters, I think of three sisters and their brother, or four sisters.
Four sisters. Now, one of the squash that you're growing is here. Can you tell me about this?
This is called Omaha squash, and it is a traditional heritage squash. The name is given to the tribe from which it was first collected.
Okay.
More than likely, there were other tribes that grew this squash, but because it was first collected from the Omaha, that's the name that stuck with it.
Okay.
And as you can see, it doesn't make, these are probably average size, maybe a little bit bigger. So it's a very small squash or pumpkin, but produces, as you can see, we get a lot of them. They produce very well. And are fairly tasty pumpkin. I use it as a cooking pumpkin.
I noticed you have several different squash out here, and none of them really look like what most people consider a squash or a pumpkin.
No.
They're certainly very
I
different.
think, you know, that's one of our problems with vegetables in general. We grow up used to eat, you know, what our mothers fed us, and then when something else comes along, it may be a squash or a potato, whatever, well, because it looks a little different, we're a little hesitant about it.
To try. I was really interested in your drying rack here for the squash. Can you tell us about this?
Well, this is a miniature version, and again, this is primarily for public educational purposes. But particularly, we know in the Great Plains area, in the central and northern plains area, that is from about northern Kansas and on north, this was the common way people, traditional people, dried their squashes. And so they would actually pick them at a younger stage than these are.
Okay.
And dry them. They in summer heat in July and August, those squash would be like leather in 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And then you'd bag them up into rawhide or leather bags, store them, and in the wintertime then take them out, break them up, and put them in your soup or stew, reconstitute them just like we do other things. And of course, you don't have a grocery market, you don't have a freezer, so this is the way you preserve that type of food.
Excellent. One more thing I wanted to look at right over here is your use of cover crops.
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I've been doing that for some time. I'm concerned that the garden as I inherited here was not in very good shape, so we're constantly trying to build up the soil, but I'm also concerned about rotating the crops through, so next year, for instance, there'll be something else here other than squash. But I always try to have patches of buckwheat because it does well here in the summer.
Sure.
It's actually at a point now where it should be cut and mowed and rototilled in, again as a good green manure crop, but also as a cover crop. And we get a lot of rain here and get a lot of problems with surface erosion here. This helps slow down the rain, and the bees love it.
And that's of course important for pollination.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take a look over at your demonstration plots back here.
Sure.
So these are your Oklahoma native plant beds. Can you tell me what some of the uses you have for this area are? Your
well,
purposes?
I thought we've got the Native American garden here, but we also need to remember that native peoples made use of native plants, that is, things they didn't cultivate. And so I've become very interested in Oklahoma native plants, and I thought, why not introduce some of those plants here in the garden to talk about how native people used them, but also to encourage gardeners to think about some other kind of plant material in the state, because these are the tough boys and girls.
They've
lived by themselves here long before we arrived, and once they're established, they don't need a lot of help. So this is another addition, something that's just started out. We're having auditions now the last couple of years to make sure some of these are going to do okay. And in particular, this plant, which is called dogbane, there are several different species of it, is a very interesting plant to me. We find that it grows throughout the Great Plains. There are several species of it, but the neat thing about it is all the uses it was made of it. The big thing was that during the fall, after it really finished most of its seasonal growth, we'd strip the bark off and use the inner fibers there to inner bark to make fibers to make bowstrings, any kind of twine or binding material. All kinds of things were used for it. Even some medicines were made of it. For many native people, this is also an extremely sacred plant too. For some people, there are lots of restrictions about how this plant is treated and used. It's very, very sacred. Figures long way back into their antiquity.
Absolutely.
So they're beautiful plants, a lot of variety, some interesting uses, and something different for our gardens.
Absolutely.
Plus, I think with so many of our native plants, that once they're through their flowering and so forth, they make beautiful additions in the garden during the fall and winter months.
They add some structure.
Adds a structure, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have so many here, I mean, Oklahoma's fabulous with all the native plants we have here. And we don't do enough with them.
Has great diversity, absolutely. Well, Fred, thank you so much
Sure.
for sharing the Native American gardens with us.
Well, thank you for coming. Enjoy and have a new year.